This is a true story about the boy, Satyaraju, who sat in meditation for 12 years, 23 hours daily for 8 years, and 12 hours daily for 4 years, to become the greatest yogi, Shri 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 Sivabalayogi Maharaj. Chapter 1. Adivarapupweta is a little village in southeastern India, surrounded by rice fields and groves of palmyra and coconut trees. A small canal called Gadivari flows along the outskirts of the village. Those who live in Adivarapupweta mainly work mostly as weavers of cloth, primarily for dhotis for men and saris for women. They sell their finished products in the nearby towns and villages. Alakabhimana and his wife, Srivanama, live in this village. As they have no children, Alakabhimana, with the consent of his wife, decides to marry Parvathama. Parvathama gives birth to 2 daughters and 2 sons. The youngest, a boy, is born on January 24th and named Satyaraju by his parents. When he is 2 years old, Shivanama gets the approval of her husband and Parvathama to raise Satyaraju as her own son. Alakabhimana often tells Parvathama that their youngest son, Satyaraju, is going to become famous and make the family proud. But he, Alakabhimana, will not live to see this happen. In July, when Satyaraju is barely 2.5 years old, his father dies. The 2 widowed wives separate and go to live in their parents' homes. Shivanama goes to her own village of Bandaru Lanka. Parvathama goes to live with her father, Gali Satyam, in Adivarapupweta. Because Satyaraju is too young to be separated from his natural mother, Shivanama leaves him with Parvathama for the time being. When he is 5 years old, Shrivanama comes and takes him to her own home, Bandaru Lanka, to bring him up as her own son. After 6 months, Parvathama visits them. Satyaraju wishes to return to Adivarapupweta, and his stepmother agrees to this. Parvathama is still living with her father, Gali Satyam. He is a poor man and finds it difficult to support his widowed daughter and her 4 children. Satyaraju is enrolled in the local village school and also has to do work at home. He wakes up at 5 a.m., takes a bath, and eats a breakfast of curd, yogurt, and rice. He skillfully works on the loom, weaving machine, weaving brightly colored cloth, which is the specialty of the family. After lunch, he goes to school from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. When school is over, he goes out to play until dinner at 6 p.m. After dinner, Satyaraju sits with his grandfather for about an hour or so and tells him everything that has happened during the day. Gali Satyam listens to him with interest and also gives him valuable advice and instruction. At 7 p.m., Satyaraju joins a group for kirtan, singing God's name, or goes out to play with his friends. The boys practice the use of the sword and lathi, bamboo stick. He proves to be very skillful in this ancient art. He goes to bed about 10 p.m. It is a hard life for a young child who is barely 6 years old, but not different from the lives of poor children in most of the villages. Even though Gali Satyam has little money, he is a lively old man with a deep sense of honor and self-respect. He repeatedly tells the family and Satyaraju, "You shouldn't be ashamed of being poor. You must not beg or be dependent on anyone else. You must live respectably and honestly, even though it is often more difficult. Lying must be avoided at all times." Satyaraju loves and respects his grandfather and carefully follows his grandfather's advice and diligently carries out his instructions. He always listens carefully to his grandfather's wise words and soon treats him as his most trusted friend. Gali Satyam makes a beneficial and lasting influence on the character of his favorite grandchild. One day, Satyaraju is sent to work in the neighboring town of Ramachandrapuram. His grandfather tells him, "You have many relatives there, but they will probably not be polite or considerate. You should behave yourself and respect your relatives, and should not visit their homes unless they invite you." It is 11 o'clock at night when he finally finishes working. Usually, he would go to his relative's home and have a good meal in a comfortable bed. However, none of his relatives invite him to their home. Satyaraju is just 8 years old and remembers the advice of his grandfather. He decides to spend the night on the porch of a closed shop, even though it is uncomfortable. Early the next morning, he returns home and tells his grandfather what he has done. His grandfather is very happy at the bravery and determination shown by Satyaraju. Gali Satyam is more positive than ever that his favorite grandson will have a bright future ahead of him. In January, his stepmother, Shivanama, visits them. His mother, Parvatama, and grandfather, Gali Satyam, agrees that 8-year-old Satyaraju can return to Bandaru Lanka to live with his stepmother. He is enrolled in the village school and proves to be a bright student. His stepmother abruptly decides to withdraw him from school. He is upset because he is eager about his studies. His stepmother refuses to change her mind. She says that she needs his help at home because she can't manage alone. He is awakened early in the morning, set to work weaving half a sari, 3 feet by 8 feet every day. Satyaraju is only 8 years old, working long hours on the primitive and heavy loom causes a serious physical strain on his young body. After he finishes his work, Shrivanama sends him to the market to buy cotton or to sell his finished cloth at the market. When he returns, he is told to do household chores. He has to slave for his stepmother all day. He isn't allowed to go out and play with the other boys, as he did at home. Satyaraju's mother, Parvatama, makes sure that her children have nourishing and wholesome food, and he was used to eating 5 to 6 times a day. Although his stepmother has more money, she is very stingy with food. He has to get by each day on a light breakfast and 2 other meager meals. Often he remains hungry. His physical condition worsens because of the hard work and the lack of food. He longs to return to his mother and grandfather. However, he continues to work loyally for his stepmother. With his sharp intelligence, he learns about buying and selling of a product. He becomes convinced that running a business is the only way to end his family's poverty. Shivanama has been secretly carrying on an unlawful opium drug business, which Satyaraju knows nothing about. One day, officers of the tax department are informed that she has 40 tolas, 13 ounces, of opium hidden in her house. A search warrant is taken out, and a group of officers are on their way to search her house. Satyaraju hears about this from some of his friends. He rushes home to tell his stepmother before the officers arrive. He asks her point blank, "Do you have drugs hidden in the house?" She shows him the drugs, and he quickly removes them from the house. When the search party arrives, they find nothing. Satyaraju saves his stepmother from arrest and disgrace. He is extremely upset when he learns from his stepmother about her dishonest business practices. He scolds her. "I will leave you and return to my mother if you don't stop this illegal business." She appears to agree with him. She promises to give up the activities, but this doesn't happen. Satyaraju soon discovers that she is continuing her opium business. She becomes annoyed by his criticism of her business. He finally tells her, "I will not stay with you any longer. Can I please go home to Adivaru Pupueta?" She readily agrees to his leaving. He has lived with his stepmother for just 5 months. When Satyaraju arrives back in Adivara Pupeta, he doesn't go to school, even though he likes his studies. He decides to spend all of his time and energies earning a good living for his family. He puts in long hours at the loom. His grandfather watches carefully that his grandson does not overwork himself, but he quietly puts in extra hours of weaving. He hands over all of his earnings from work to his mother and grandfather. During the summer months, he tries to earn extra money by selling sherbet and cool drinks. Poverty forces him to work continually to earn a living, while wealthier boys of his age go to school and play. Satyaraju has been a good student in school. He is still an active boy and likes to participate in games and play with the other boys. He is better than all the other boys in skills and athletic ability. Every day since the age of 6, he has practiced the use of the sword and lati. He also has a good reputation among his playmates and older people in the village. All these qualities combine to make him a natural leader of the boys in the village. He is feared and disliked by those who are untruthful. He often uncovers their wrongdoings for the public. Satyaraju's uncle is a powerful and respected man in the village, the head of the family, and also of the community. The uncle has become attached to a sadhu, one who leads a strict religious life. Later, he accepts this sadhu as his guru, spiritual teacher. This sadhu is an arrogant fellow who threatens terrible things to anyone who crosses his path. He boasts that if anyone gets him angry, he has a curse that can change them into an animal form. The simple villagers believe him and admire and fear the old man. Satyaraju immediately dislikes this sadhu because of his boastful ways and angry threats. Satyaraju is convinced that this old man doesn't have any powers. He decides to show the villagers that the sadhu is a fake. One day, everybody is seated in the presence of the sadhu, who is boasting as usual. Satyaraju asks the sadhu, "What would you do if anyone stole some of your things?" The sadhu replies, "I will turn him into a tiger." Satyaraju pretends to show surprise and fear, but remains quiet. Soon the old man leaves, and Satyaraju is left alone in his room. He quickly takes the sadhu's bow and arrows and hides them on a ledge just above the spot where he sleeps. Then he sneaks out of the room without being noticed by anybody. The sadhu returns and finds his bow and arrows missing. A search is conducted, but the articles aren't found. Now the old man loses his temper and begins to scream about what he will do to the thief. Satyaraju watches and innocently suggests, "Why don't you use your powers to find the missing things and the guilty person?" The sadhu becomes angrier with this suggestion. Satyaraju is quickly hurried out of the room by his concerned relatives. They are afraid that the sadhu will put a curse on him. Satyaraju is surprised at the old man's terrible anger and is also worried about what he might do to him. He runs straight to his grandfather and innocently tells him, "I have hidden the sadhu's bow and arrows. If he turns me into a tiger, Then people may hunt me down and kill me. So tie me up inside." His grandfather is amused. He tells him, "Don't worry. Wait and see what happens." A considerable time passes, and nothing happens to Satyaraju. He is now positive that the sadhu is a fake. He bravely goes up to the old man in front of all of his admirers. He says, "I have hidden your bow and arrows." And he shows everyone the hiding place. "I dare you to change me into a tiger, as you have threatened to do all along." Satyaraju's relatives are astonished at his words, and are frightened that the sadhu might harm him. The old man fusses and curses, but Satyaraju boldly stands his ground, and nothing happens to him. He is severely scolded by his uncle and others for his poor behavior, but he proved his point. The old man never again boasts or terrorizes the villagers. When Satyaraju is 12 years old, his stepmother becomes seriously ill. She sends for him because she is bedridden and needs to be looked after. He comes and cares for her. She soon recovers and once again starts her opium business. She tries to hide this from him, but he finds out and expresses his strong disapproval. Other similar events cause constant friction between them, and matters get much worse. One night, Shivanama is serving dinner to him. She harshly criticizes him for his conduct. Satyaraju is deeply hurt by her unfair abuse. He immediately gets up without finishing his meal and announces, "I am leaving for Adivara Pupweta this very instant." Collecting his belongings, he goes outside. However, as he vowed to never re-enter his stepmother's house, he decides to spend the night on the veranda. Shivanama, by now, softens and comes outside. She asks him to forgive her and come inside and sleep comfortably in his room. Satyaraju isn't persuaded and repeats his vow, "I will never again set foot in your house." Early the next morning, he starts walking home to Adivara Pupweta. As he reaches the Godavari River, he suddenly realizes that he has no money for the boat fare. So he racks his brain for a solution to this problem. Quickly, he takes off his shirt and decides to offer it to the boatman for his fare. Luckily, at that moment, he finds a 1 anna coin on the ground, which is exactly the amount of the fare. He is relieved and continues happily on his journey. Satyaraju knows that his other relatives, besides his mother and grandfather, will not approve of his leaving his stepmother again. So he doesn't go directly home, but goes to the village Draksharama to pray. He has great faith in the protector of the Draksharama and goes to the shrine, place of worship. He stands before the Bhimeshwara, Mahadev, supreme god of strength. The god is in the form of a Bhimeshwara lingam, a rounded, oblong stone, symbol of Shiva, destroyer of the unreal. He silently prays to God that his relatives shall understand the reasons for leaving his stepmother's house. Satisfied that God has heard his prayer, he continues home. As he anticipated, his uncle and other relatives are very annoyed when they learn that he has left his stepmother. They order him to return to stepmother because of his father's promise to her. Fortunately, his grandfather comes to his rescue and listens to the entire story from his grandson. He tells him that it was good that he left his stepmother and came home. With his grandfather's support, he is able to oppose the pressure from his relatives. Shivanama arrives and pleads with him to return with her. No amount of persuasion can make him go back on his vow to never set foot in her house again. Slowly, the opposition quiets down, and he is able to remain with his family. Satyaraju has a burning ambition to save his family, particularly his mother, from poverty. He soon realizes that the family occupation of weaving will never bring them riches. All the members of his family, including the children, slave at the loom for hours every day. Still, the family is barely able to earn enough money for the lowest level of living. He has thought deeply about this problem. He realizes that business is the one vocation that promises a quick and adequate income. With this in the back of his mind, he is always on the lookout for a business opportunity. He soon learns that one of the village boys has opened a bidi, cheap cigarette, shop with only 25 rupees, Indian money. And the business is doing well. This gives him an idea of opening a similar bidi shop. As is his habit, he discusses the plan with his grandfather. "Grandfather, I would like to open a bidi shop. It will be a good business." His grandfather is not pleased with the idea and feels that it is not the proper occupation for a member of his family. He tells him, "If you want to have a business, become a cloth salesman. This is a more suitable profession for a member of our community. I have been hoping all along that you would become a cloth salesman." Satyaraju respects his grandfather's views and advice. His grandfather's opposition stops his plan for a shop for now. Yet he does not give up the idea, and often thinks about and plans this pet project of his. One day he is walking along, thinking of his plans for a shop, and sees a copper coin lying on the roadside. Now, finding a copper coin in this way is considered to be a sign of a good fortune. Satyaraju feels that this is a good sign, and he picks up the coin and touches it to his eye. Then he joins a game of marbles with his friends. Whether it is the copper coin or just luck, he wins marbles worth 5 rupees and sells them for that amount. Once again, he goes straight to the shrine of the deity Bhimeshwara Mahadev in the village of Draksharama and bows with devotion before his Ishta Deva, chosen form of God. Satyaraju seriously prays to God to give him success in starting a bidi shop. He returns to Adivara Pupetta and opens his bidi shop. His business does well from the start, and soon he is making more money than he ever did by weaving. The other competing bidi shop has to close for some reason, and all the customers are sent to Satyajaru's bidi shop. He starts making good profits and regularly gives his earnings to his mother and grandfather. This pleases them very much. His grandfather soon forgets his objections about the bidi shop. Pleased with the success of his business, he makes plans to expand it. Chapter 2. Initiation Sunday, August 7th. Satyajaru is just 14 years, 6 months, and 14 days when this extraordinary event happened to change his life forever. He recalls, "On Saturday, August 6th, I am only thinking about going to the city of Kakinada to bring back my mother and grandfather. I would need money for the trip, and I spend most of the day collecting from those people who owe me for purchase at my shop. On Sunday, August 7th, I eat a light breakfast of rice and curd, yogurt. I go out and play marbles from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. I appear to have a winning streak that day and win all the games. I begin to feel hungry by about 2 p.m. and decide to go home. I keep the cash that I won and distribute the winnings of marbles among my friends. I buy some vegetables and take them home to my sister to be cooked for my lunch. While I am waiting for lunch, my friend Gangajaru comes by and asks me to go with him for a bath in the Godavari canal outside the village. I tell him that I'm feeling sort of hungry and weak and don't feel like going. Gangajaru keeps on asking me to go with him. Because lunch won't be ready for another half an hour, I agree to go with him. When we reach the canal bank, the game of marbles is still going on. I join in, and again I win. Now I am feeling very hungry, and it's close to 3 p.m. I take the money that I have won and walk to a nearby hotel. I buy and eat 2 vadas, deep-fried dumplings, and drink a cup of coffee. Then we start off towards the canal for a bath. On the way, there's a grove of palmyra trees, similar to coconut trees. As we are passing the grove, 3 palmyra fruit with sweet liquid, fall on their own. The boys with me run to pick them up from the ground. Because I am the leader of our group, they bring the fruits to me. Palmyra fruit can be broken into 4 equal pieces. There are 12 of us, so I hand out the 12 pieces equally, taking 1 for myself. After the snack of vadas and coffee, I have lit a cherut, long narrow cigar, and am still smoking it. With the cherut stuck in my mouth, I peel the fruit and start squeezing it for juice. Just then, for no apparent reason, my body begins to tremble all over. I wonder what is happening to me. All of a sudden, I see a jyoti light emerging from the fruit in my hand. At that same moment, the sound of Om, Omkara Divani, first sound in the universe, comes from the fruit. Mesmerized, I continue staring at the palmyra fruit. The divine light and sound emerging from the fruit cover me in waves of great happiness. This makes my body stop trembling, and my mind becomes calm and peaceful. As I watch, the fruit in my hand disappears, and I see instead a Shiva Linga in my hand. This Shiva Linga is black in color and approximately a foot or a foot and a half in height. The sound of Om continues while the Shiva Linga continues to radiate the same dazzling light. I am watching the Shiva Linga intently. All at once, it breaks into 2 pieces, falls apart, and the palmyra fruit falls from my hand. Standing before me is a man in the clothing of a Jangam, Devar, devotee of Shiva. This man is well over 7 feet tall, with a strong, well-built, nicely proportioned body. He has a dark complexion and a very attractive face, with large, beautiful eyes. His long jata, matted hair worn by yogi, is piled on top of his head, like the ancient rishis, yogis. He has a necklace of rudraksha beads, 108 prayer beads, with a small Shiva Linga suspended from this necklace, resting on his broad chest. He wears a white dhoti, cloth worn by men, like the ancient rishis. A brilliance radiates from his being, which blots out my vision. I can only see this yogi, surrounded by a bright radiance, and nothing else. Chapter 3. Tapas of the Eastern Direction. The yogi speaks to me in my language of Telugu. He says, "Sit down." I ask, "Why do you want me to sit down?" The yogi repeats his command, "Sit down." So I sit down, cross-legged. He says, "Sit in Padma Asana, the lotus pose." I reply, "I don't know how to sit in the lotus pose." The yogi places each of my feet on the opposite thigh and puts me in the lotus pose. He commands, "Close your eyes." I again question, "Why do you want me to close my eyes?" He replies, "Close your eyes and I will tell you." So I close my eyes. He touches me at the brikuti, spot between the eyebrows, with his middle finger and gently taps me on the head. Immediately I lose outer consciousness and go into deep samadhi, God consciousness. I am totally unaware of my body and the surroundings. All I can see is the same black Shiva linga that appeared in my hand earlier, which is still surrounded by a dazzling light. All I can hear is the Omkara Devani, the sound of Om. My mind is completely absorbed in this vision and sound and nothing else. However, the boys soon notice that Satyaraju, instead of playing with them, is sitting apart in a yogic posture with his eyes closed. Thinking that he is play acting the role of a sadhu, they tease him at first. When they get no response, they become rougher. Some try to pull him out of his lotus pose, and others punch and slap him. Satyaraju doesn't move at all. So they smear his whole body with the juice of the palmyra fruit and mud from the canal. When he doesn't react to this, they carry him to the canal and put him in the water. Satyaraju is totally unconscious of this bad treatment by his playmates and still doesn't respond. By now, it is clear to the boys that this is no play acting by Satyaraju, but they can't figure out what has happened to him. His unconscious and apparently lifeless body frightens them. They are worried that they might be blamed for his condition. They wash off the juice and the mud that they have smeared on his body and carry him out of the canal and seat him on the canal bank. They run home and tell his relatives that something strange and unexplainable has happened to Satyaraju. His uncle and 5 others hurry to the spot where Satyaraju is sitting in samadhi, God consciousness. They are so confused and don't know what to do, so they just stand around and watch him. One man, Gora Malana, suggests that Satyaraju is probably possessed by a ghost or a spirit. In order to drive out this supposed spirit, he began to beat Satyaraju with a heavy wooden club that he is carrying. Accidentally, he strikes Satyaraju on the same spot between the eyebrows, where the boy's divine guru, teacher the god, has touched him. This blow ends Satyaraju's deep samadhi. But the vision of the Shiva Linga in dazzling light continues and blocks his normal eyesight. He becomes only slightly aware of his surroundings and the people standing around him. He recognizes his uncle and speaks to him. "I need a dhoti to put on in place of my shorts." His uncle gives him a piece of cloth that he is carrying. Satyaraju gets up to put the cloth on. Then 2 people take hold of him by the arms, one on each side, and with great difficulty carry him home. Meanwhile, those who came to see Satyaraju are bothering him with all sorts of questions about his strange condition. Some ask, "Are you possessed by a ghost or spirit?" Others ask, "Have you become a sadhu?" Satyaraju doesn't answer. He is only slightly aware of what is going on around him. His mind is almost totally absorbed in the divine vision, sight of God, of the Shiva Linga, which remains constantly in front of his eyes. When they reach his house, Satyaraju finds his legs as stiff as wood, and he can't climb the porch steps. So he is carried up onto the veranda. When they try to take him into the house, his legs get stuck in the doorway, and they can't bend his legs to take him through the door. They try for over an hour and finally give up. At last, with great difficulty, they manage to sit him on the veranda. News of what happened quickly spreads through the village. A crowd of people come to see Satyaraju and keep bothering him with the same questions as before. When he doesn't answer, they begin to guess among themselves. Some say that he is possessed by a mysterious spirit. Others decide that it is a wild, uncontrollable feeling. Some think that it is false behavior or play acting. Only one person in the crowd seems to have an idea of Satyaraju's real condition. He is a 60-year-old Harijan, an outcast, named Pedakamaraju. He boldly suggests that Satyajaru, under divine God's influence, has been transformed into a yogi. Satyaraju was very hungry when he started off for a bath in the canal, and has missed his lunch because of these extraordinary events. Now, his appetite has completely disappeared, and he doesn't feel like eating, and won't take any food. However, his relatives force him to drink some milk. The excitement about Satyaraju soon dies down, and by 8 p.m. that evening, people begin to return to their homes. Some, who are curious, remain to see what will happen next. These people sit around Satyaraju, talking to each other, and as it gets late night, they drop off to sleep, one by one. Around 11 p.m. that night, Satyaraju at last finds himself alone. All the other people are fast asleep. The divine vision, sight of God, with the Shiva Linga, surrounded by the bright rays of light, and the sound of Om Kara Divani, continues. Satyaraju now makes up his mind to return to the canal bank, where the divine experience, event from God, first happened. When he gets up to leave, one of the boys, Govinda, also awakens and tries to follow him, and Satyaraju hides from him. He makes his way back from the spot where his divine guru, teacher, the god, first made him sit. He sits down, but is unable to close his eyes. But this doesn't keep him from dhyana, meditating. He continues to see the divine vision, even with his eyes open. His mind remains completely absorbed in the vision. It starts to rain soon, after he sits on the bank. It pours during the entire night. But Satyaraju pays no attention to it. He is thoroughly soaked, but doesn't think of moving to a place protected from the rain. The next morning, a Harijan boy named Pantapati brings some milk, and he offers it to Satyaraju, who accepts the milk and drinks it. The villagers who are curious about what has happened to Satyaraju go to his house, and not finding him there, they go to the canal bank. When they see that he is being soaked by rain, they carry him and seat him under a banyan tree, a ficus tree with hanging roots near the village. They place a palmyra leaf umbrella over him to protect him from the rain. Satyaraju is aware of the activity around him, but pays no attention to it. His eyes are open, but he can barely see the people around him, who appear like shadowy figures, moving lightly and rapidly in the background. The bright vision remains steady and unchanging before his eyes. When some faces become clear, he can barely remember where he has seen them before, and can't remember their name, or whether they are relatives, friends, or villagers. The touch of his divine guru has blotted out these thoughts from his mind, and snapped all earthly connections. Though it rains all day long, Satyaraju pays no attention to it and continues to sit under the temporary shelter of the palmyra leaf umbrella. He is totally absorbed in the vision that he continues to see all the time. About 9 p.m. that night, some Harajan boys are passing by and hear the Omkara Divani, Om sound, coming from the spot where Satyaraju is sitting. Because they can't understand the strange sound, they run and tell the villagers. Some villagers come to investigate and also hear the Omkara Divani coming from the same place, and silently stand at a distance, listening with wonder and fear. The sound continues for 45 minutes, and when it finally stops, the villagers bravely come closer to Satyaraju and lift him up and carry him home. At home, his sister gives him some milk to drink. After he finishes the milk, the divine energy that has strongly held his mind lessens a little, and feeling drowsy, he falls asleep. Little does Satyaraju know that this is the last real sleep that he is going to have for the next 12 years. During his tapas, he will only doze, but never leave his seat to lie down to sleep. After a good night's sleep, Satyaraju gets up at 6:30 a.m. and eats a light breakfast of idlis, boiled rice, and white paste of dal, and chutney, spicy sauce, that his sister has prepared for him. When he finishes his breakfast, the divine vision of the Shiva Linga, surrounded by light and the sound of Om, again grips his mind. So he returns to the canal bank, where he first had the divine experience. When he gets there, he feels extremely sick to his stomach, vomits, and develops diarrhea. His friend, Govinda, takes care of him. Then Satyaraju becomes absorbed in the divine vision again. Later that morning, a lady from the village comes to see Satyaraju sitting on the canal bank. She completely believes that Satyaraju is Balayogi, Boy Yogi, and worships him with incense and flowers and makes an offering of a coconut. When she finishes her worship, she hands out pieces of the coconut as prasad, blessed food. That same morning, some of the villagers decide on their own to build a pandal, which is a shelter of palmyra leaves for Satyaraju. The construction is done under the banyan tree and is completed by 3:30 p.m. These same villagers come to Satyaraju and ask him to sit under the newly built shelter. Satyaraju agrees and takes his seat there. At 5:30 p.m. that afternoon, Satyaraju's mother and grandfather return from Kakinada. They become greatly alarmed when they hear about the strange events of the past 2 days, and immediately rush to the canal bank to find out what has happened to Satyaraju. When they reach there, they find Satyaraju sitting under the pandal beneath the banyan tree, absorbed in samadhi, God consciousness. His mother and grandfather are very upset. They keep calling out, "Satyaraju! Satyaraju! Satyaraju!" Satyaraju is not aware of their presence in the outer world. His mother can't control herself, seeing her son's condition, and she becomes hysterical. She weeps loudly and clasps the boy to her chest. She cries, "What has happened to you? Why do you behave so strangely?" Because of her loud crying, Satyaraju then becomes aware of her presence. His mother, with tears flowing from her eyes, pleads with him, "Please return home with me." Satyaraju's mind is now totally separated from his family relationships. He is unmoved by his mother's tears and pleading. He calmly tells her, "I have started out on the divine quest, journey for God. I will not leave this holy path and return home." Then he sits back, totally detached, and no amount of weeping or protesting by his mother can change his mind. His grandfather blesses him when he finds that Satyaraju is determined to continue on his path. He tells Satyaraju, "You have chosen an excellent path and must be determined to stick to it." Yet his grandfather does show some disappointment about this choice. He tells Satyaraju, "We look upon you as the hope of the family and support for our old age. Now there will be no one to care for the family." Satyaraju assures them, "The family will not have to face any problems with money or anything else. Everything will be fine with the family." After this short conversation, Satyaraju closes his eyes and goes into samadhi. The grieving mother cannot bear to leave him sitting there and return home alone. She is confused and doesn't know what to do next or how to solve this strange problem, so she sits down nearby. She looks at her son from time to time and weeps quietly into the folds of her sari. Suddenly, as she is looking at her son, the beautiful vision of the Trimurti, Trinity of God, flashes before her eyes. She thinks that is her imagination and rubs her eyes and looks again, but the vision is still there in all its brilliant beauty. Now, wherever she looks, she sees only the Trimurti and nothing else. She doesn't know how long this lasts because time stands still. This vision makes her realize that her son is under divine, God's protection. She doesn't need to be afraid about him any longer. This brings some peace to her mind, and she returns home contented. Parvatama is reassured by the divine vision, but her motherly heart continues to care about her son's well-being. She tries to feed him and look after him. However, Satyaraju politely refuses her attention and tells his mother, "Please do not visit me anymore." This makes Parvatama very sad, but she has no choice but to agree with his wish. Gauramalana's house is next to the place where Satyaraju is sitting. He decides to look after the young yogi, but isn't very smart about spiritual matters. Remember, he was the one who beat Satyaraju with a heavy stick because he believed a spirit was possessing him. Gauramalana remembers hearing that the great rishis, yogis, of long ago used to live on air alone when doing tapas. He advises Satyaraju to do the same thing, and Satyaraju agrees. Gauramalana starts to slowly reduce the amount of fruit and milk that Satyaraju is eating. Soon, he stops giving him anything, and now Satyaraju is eating no food at all. When his mother hears about this, she is very upset. She takes some milk to where her son is sitting and begs him, "Please drink this milk." Satyaraju feels her concern and drinks the milk that she has brought. Gauramalana is very annoyed by this and protests to the Balayogi. Satyaraju simply answers, "I cannot refuse anything when it is offered to me with love and devotion." This further upsets Gauramalana. He angrily replies, "If I bring you some meat, will you eat that also?" The Balayogi looks at him calmly and says in a soft voice, "Yes, I shall eat meat if you offer it with bhakti, devotion." Gauramalana becomes angry and stamps off to his home. He says that he will no longer have anything to do with the yogi. He not only stops giving him small help, but begins to make fun of the yogi. When a person sets out on the spiritual path, he always finds someone blocking his way. And this happens to Satyaraju. Most people recognize Satyaraju as the Balayogi and treat him with deep respect. But others are jealous and mischievous. They wait until no one is around and torment the young yogi while he is deep in samadhi. Parvatama is caring for her son, but she can't stay with him all the time because she needs to go home to look after her family. When she is gone, some of the boys, who showed no hostility earlier and now fear and dislike Satyaraju, creep up and badly beat him. Once, a very mean person soaks a piece of cloth in kerosene, sets it afire, and then throws the burning cloth on the Balayogi while he is sitting in samadhi. Satyaraju is not aware of his body and knows and feels nothing at the time. The burning cloth causes deep and very painful burns on his hands and legs, but the Balayogi pays no attention to the intense pain from these burns and continues his tapas as before. News of this incident spreads to the village, and a kind of old man prepares a healing ointment for these burns. Every day he comes and applies the ointment on the burns, while the yogi sits in samadhi, and then he quietly leaves. The burns gradually heal because of this old man's care, but the scars are permanent. Most people believe that Satyaraju is really doing tapas, but there are some who still don't believe it. One such disbeliever is Dora Viraraju, a resident of Adivara Pupetta, who decides to show that the Balayogi is a fake with the help of his friend Chinta Surana. One evening, they come to where the Balayogi is sitting under the shelter of the palmyra leaves, pretending that they have come for his blessings. They wait until everybody leaves. When they are alone, the Balayogi, they try to test the strength of the Balayogi's samadhi. Chinta Surana pulls out his leg in order to undo the yogi's lotus posture. He succeeds in doing this, and the leg remains where he put them. He tries to awaken the yogi from samadhi, using his fingers to pry open one of his eyelids. The eyelid remains half open, but the yogi's samadhi continues unchanged. Having some knowledge of these things, Chinta Surana is now convinced that the yogi's samadhi is the real thing and feels ashamed for what he has done. He tries to close the half-opened eyelid and put his legs back, but he can't do anything. He struggles at this task most of the night, but never succeeds. Finally, when the Balayogi comes out of his samadhi, Chinta Surana falls at his feet and begs for his forgiveness for what he has done. The Balayogi smiles and repeatedly forgives him. The next morning, Chinta Surana goes to see Parvatama and tells her that her son is a Mahatma, great soul, and that she should take good care of him. The Balayogi puts up with these torments for 2 months without letting them affect his tapas. But his peace of mind is affected by these constant disturbances. He will often stop himself from going into samadhi because he doesn't want to be tortured while he is in an unconsciousness state. He often catches people ready to beat him because they think that he is in samadhi, when he actually is in deep dhyana, meditation. The guilty ones are surprised and beg his forgiveness, and he always lets them go. He finally becomes sick and tired of these torments and decides to move away so he can carry on his tapas undisturbed. He thinks a lot about where he can find a peaceful place for his tapas, and remembers hearing of an ashram, quiet place for spiritual practice, at Pasalapudi. This village is just 8 kilometers from Adivarapupweta, where a sadhu is supposed to be doing tapas. Satyajaru hopes that the ashram will be the right place for his tapas. Just 2 months after beginning his tapas, he leaves for Pasalapudi at 10 p.m. He finds the ashram that he is looking for. As he enters, the sadhu inside begins making weird noises to frighten away any wandering youngster who is trying to secretly enter the ashram. The Balayogi figures out that the strange behavior of the sadhu means that he does not want to be disturbed, so the young yogi goes outside. During those days, groups of communists wander over the countryside to frighten the villagers. For self-defense, every village has organized a posse of armed men who patrol the area around their village. A posse happens to pass by the ashram and sees the young boy, who obviously is a stranger, sitting outside. They immediately surround the boy and start questioning him. The Balayogi is in his state of mind, can hardly understand what is going on, let alone answer the questions correctly. The posse becomes even more suspicious because of this strange behavior, and a dangerous situation develops. Fortunately, one of the men recognizes the boy as the Balayogi of Adivarapupweta. When they learn from the Balayogi that he has come to Pasalapudi to stay at the ashram, they call out to the manager of the ashram and have the Balayogi brought inside. After finding a space for the young yogi, the manager asks him what sadhana, spiritual practice, he is practicing. The Balayogi can't give a good answer because he has followed no particular sadhana. He simply became deeply absorbed in samadhi because of the divine touch of his guru. So he answers, "I don't know." The manager is full of self-importance. He says, "If that is so, I shall instruct into a spiritual practice, you. From now on, repeat the mantra, words that give specific powers, Sadguru, spiritual teacher, all the time." Then he leaves and goes to bed. When the Balayogi finds himself alone and undisturbed, he goes back into samadhi. The next morning, the manager comes to see him again and quickly asks the Balayogi whether he repeated the mantra that he gave him. When the Balayogi replies that he hasn't repeated the mantra, the manager is visibly annoyed. Kari Subi Reddy, president of the Pasalapudi Village Council, controls the running of the ashram and visits the ashram later that morning. The sadhu gets up and does namaskar, greetings with his hands together. When he sees Mr. Reddy, he urges the Balayogi also to do the same. However, the Balayogi, unconcerned, continues sitting deep in dhyana, meditation. Mr. Reddy, full of self-importance, feels offended at being ignored by the Balayogi. He sharply asks the Balayogi what diet he is taking. The Balayogi replies that his diet is restricted to milk only. He tells the Balayogi that milk will no longer be available for him, and that he should not stay at the ashram any longer. The attitude of these ashram officials show the Balayogi that he isn't welcome there. He decides to return to Adivarapupweta. He starts out soon after sunset, and by 10 p.m., he is back in his home village after being away for about 24 hours. When he reaches the village, He doesn't return to his first location, but goes to sit under the banyan tree on the land that belongs to his uncle. The next morning, when the people of Adivara Pupueta learn that the Balayogi is back, they are overjoyed and come in large numbers for his darshan, blessing by his presence. The East Godavari district, not far from the sea, often has cyclones, storms with strong winds. One such very powerful storm strikes the region in November. A very harsh wind, followed by pouring rain, sweeps across the countryside, starting at about 2:30 a.m. and continues non-stop until 5 a.m. Trees are uprooted, houses collapse. The whole area is flooded and people are in great distress. Mother Parvatama fears for her son's safety in such a disaster, so she runs to where he is sitting while the storm is raging. It is a risky thing to do, and she narrowly escapes death when a large branch torn off by the cyclone strikes her head. Though stunned by the blow, she soon recovers, and driven on by the concern for her son, she somehow manages to reach the banyan tree where the Balayogi is sitting. She is very surprised to find that the area around the Balayogi is completely peaceful, in the midst of the raging storm. The Balayogi is in deep dhyana, meditation, undisturbed by the destruction all around him. The place where he is sitting remains calm and clean. Not a leaf is disturbed under the banyan tree. Relieved and a little astonished, Mother Parvatama goes to sit near him. As the storm stops at dawn, she sees in the growing light that swarms of large red ants have found protection in the place where the Balayogi is sitting. The Balayogi's body is covered with thick clusters of these ants. She is greatly disturbed by this sight and starts brushing them off of his body, but the Balayogi signals her to stop and leave the ants undisturbed. The Balayogi continues his tapas under the banyan tree, but once again he is bothered by the village children, and even by some elder people who don't care for him. During the daytime, these people do not do anything because there is a constant stream of visitors coming for the darshan, blessing, of the yogi. However, they get the chance at night when the visitors and those caring for him have gone home and he is all by himself. The Balayogi thinks about how he can stop these disturbances. He decides to move to the village burial ground. These people will be afraid to follow him there, especially at night, and he might have some peace there. In November, the Balayogi moves his place of tapas to the burial ground on the outskirts of the village. His feelings are correct. Because the people are afraid of a burial ground, none of them dare to go there at night, and the Balayogi is left undisturbed. This relief is only for a short time. He soon discovers that the burial ground is swarming with insects and rodents, which are used to feed on the flesh of the dead bodies buried there. When these insects and rodents find the Balayogi sitting absolutely still for hours, looking like he is not alive, they nibble at his skin, causing many wounds, mostly on the lower parts of his body, which rest on the ground. Then, when the Balayogi goes for his daily bath in the canal, the fish nibble at the open wounds. He did find relief from the mischievous people, but now his body is suffering due to the insects and rodents living in the burial ground. In December, about 15 days after the Balayogi has moved to the burial ground, he is going to the canal for his daily midnight bath, and a deadly black cobra, which is lying across his path, rears up and forcefully bites him in his leg. Blood starts dripping from the wound, but the Bala Yogi ignores it. He takes his bath, returns to his seat in the burial ground, and goes back into samadhi. At first, the Bala Yogi pays no attention to the snake bite. However, the venom injected by the serpent begins to react on his body. At first, the skin changes color, with blotches appearing all over his body. Then, his flesh starts to decay and give off a foul smell. The Bala Yogi is suffering a lot of pain and discomfort. The physical suffering caused by the snake bite is the last straw, coming on top of all of his other troubles. He decides to give up his yogic practices and return home because he never intended to tread the yogic path. The tapas he is presently undergoing is at the command of the Jangam Veshadari, whom he looks upon as his guru. He now feels that the yogic way of life is not worth all the trouble. It is better to return home and lead a normal life. With these thoughts running through his mind, he leaves his seat one night and starts for home. Satyaraju did not decide to enter the Tapo Marg, tapas path, on his own, but was made to do so. Therefore, he would not be allowed to leave this path by his own choice. He nears the banyan tree on the path to his home. Suddenly, he sees the Jangam Veshadari, his guru, standing under the tree and blocking his way. Seeing his guru, the Bala Yogi does namaskar to him. With a slight smile, the guru asks, "Where are you going?" The Bala Yogi answers, "I am going home." "Why?" asks the guru. Then he tells him about the troubles he has had since starting his yogic practices, and about his present suffering from the snake bite. The Bala Yogi ends by saying, "I find it impossible to continue any longer, and am thinking of stopping my tapas and going home." The guru listens to him in silence and continues to look at the boy for some time. Then he tells his young disciple, "I want you to go back and not give up your yogic practice for any reason. I will give you the Pacha Akshari mantra, prayer to Shiva, which you are to repeat daily. I assure you that the action of this mantra will remove the suffering caused by the snake bite, and you will soon have normal health." The Bala Yogi obeys his guru and returns to his seat in the burial ground. He feels somewhat ashamed of the brief weakness that caused him to leave for home. He decides then and there that he would rather die following the yogic path than be called a yoga brasta, one who has failed in the path of yoga. In order to strengthen his purpose for the future, he makes a solemn vow. "I will never again turn away from the path shown by my guru." He is enthusiastic and determined again because of the blessing of his guru. He starts chanting, singing the Pacha Akshari mantra, and soon passes into deep samadhi. As the guru predicted, repeating the mantra destroys the effects of the poison and brings back his health. The news spreads far and wide that the Bala Yogi of Adivara Pupetta has survived the usually fatal bite of a deadly cobra. It soon reaches the ears of Sri Bala Sundaram Pillai, the collector, top local official of the East Godavari district, who is a deeply religious man. Because of this news and the information about the Bala Yogi, he wishes to have the darshan, blessing, of this young saint. He also learns that the Bala Yogi remains in samadhi for nearly 24 hours and comes out of his samadhi around midnight to take a daily bath and some light food. In January, the collector brings his personal assistant, Sri T.V. Satyanarayana Reho, and the Tehsildar, local official, Narasimha Murthy, at midnight to the burial ground for the Balayogi's darshan without informing anyone. He has just come out of samadhi and is able to talk with them. Before leaving, the collector asks him if there is anything that he can do for him. As it is custom to sit on a deer skin or a tiger skin for tapas, the Balayogi asks him to send a tiger skin for his use. A few days earlier, a man was caught with a tiger skin who had been hunting illegally. The tiger skin was taken from him when he was arrested and was not in the collector's office. The next day, the collector sends Narasimha Murthy to deliver the tiger skin to the Balayogi. When he brings the tiger skin, he finds the ground damp where the Balayogi is sitting. It is obvious to him that the tiger skin will start rotting and smelling if it is spread on the damp ground. He prevents this by having a wooden platform built for the Balayogi to sit on, and spreads the tiger skin on the platform. He also has a pandal built to cover the wooden platform. This higher seat on the wooden platform protects him from the bites of rodents, ants, and other insects. The Balayogi is now able to do his tapas more comfortably. Soon after his first darshan of the Balayogi, Balasundaram Pillai is transferred. But before he leaves his work assignment, he comes again for darshan. His personal assistant and the Tehsildar accompany him as they did previously. Sri Satyanarayana Reho, the personal assistant, is by now very impressed by the young yogi. Before leaving the next day, he discusses with Sri Murthy his plan to build a dhyana mandir, temple for dhyana meditation, for the Balayogi's use. The land next to the burial ground belongs to the landlord of Vela village. When the Tehsildar and the personal assistant discuss this plan with the landlord, he repeatedly agrees to the construction of the dhyana mandir on his land. Meanwhile, the Balayogi intensely continues his tapas in the makeshift hut in the burial ground. Because he sits motionless in samadhi day after day for nearly 24 hours, his hands and legs become stiff as wood. Soon he loses control of his limbs. By the time 15 and a half years old, Balayogi completes his first year of tapas. He finds it impossible to move from his seat. A bucket of water has to be brought and placed outside his hut for his daily religious bathing. With great difficulty, immense willpower, and determination, he barely manages to drag himself to the bucket, take his bath, and return to his seat to continue his samadhi. Even with all the suffering, he continues with his tapas, non-stop. The dhyana mandir is ready in October. The Balayogi is lifted up and carried to his new home. At the same time, a man named Ramakrishna Reddy has a well dug near the dhyana mandir. This well will not only serve the Balayogi, but will provide drinking water for the entire village. Then Sri Narasimha Murthy and Tehsildar takes care of the needs of the Balayogi. He wants to be sure that he is not disturbed during his tapas. Therefore, he directs that the door of the dhyana mandir will now be closed and locked. The key to the lock is to be kept with the mother Parvatama. From then on, he starts sending regular donations of money to Parvatama towards the costs of buying fruit and milk for her son. Narasimha Murthy continues his unselfish service to the Balayogi for the entire tapas period and even after. He is the only one that can awaken him from samadhi. By gently tapping him anywhere on the body, he brings the yogi back to normal consciousness. He awakens him only when it is absolutely necessary. There is a saint known as Tapaswiji Maharaj, who was born into a royal family. After a full life of action and adventure, this prince, at the age 50, took sannyas, vow of becoming a monk. He has been practicing strict spiritual disciplines under the guidance of various gurus. In January, Tapaswiji Maharaj comes to the town of Kakinada. He hears of a 16-year-old Balayogi of Adivara Pupeta and desires to meet him. Tapaswiji Maharaj and Sri Sambamurthy, Speaker of the Madras Legislature Assembly, come and have a special darshan, blessing, of the Balayogi. At the time of their visit, the Balayogi is in deep samadhi, so Tapaswiji Maharaj can't speak with him. He immediately realizes the high spiritual status of the Balayogi. He sends for flowers, and with devotion places them at his feet. He instructs his companions to do the same. Extremely impressed by his first darshan, Tapaswiji Maharaj visits on several occasions. But each time, he finds the Balayogi in deep samadhi. One time, he sits in front of the Balayogi and goes into dhyana to find out the Balayogi's past lives. When he comes out of dhyana, he tells his companions that the Balayogi was a siddha, purusha, perfect soul, who has taken birth of his own free will for the spiritual improvement of mankind. One day, Mother Parvatama tells the Balayogi about the frequent visits of Tapaswiji Maharaj and his desire to meet him. He agrees to this meeting, and the news is immediately brought to Tapaswiji Maharaj in Kakinada. He comes the very next day, and this time the Balayogi is not in samadhi. When he enters the dhyana mandir, the Balayogi does namaskar, palms together and bowing. He is following the customary practice of greeting elders with namaskar. The saint respectfully tells him, "You are a Mahatma, great soul, and I am only an ordinary sadhu. You must not do namaskar to me or anybody else in the future." From that day on, he no longer greets his elders with namaskar. Tapaswiji Maharaj then sits on the wooden platform facing the Balayogi. He has a heart-to-heart talk with him. He tells him that he has met a number of tapaswins in the Himalayas, northern mountains of India, who are doing similar tapas as the Balayogi. All of them take some form of nourishment, even if in limited quantities. He advises the Balayogi to take a certain amount of milk every day. If he continues to starve himself, his body will probably die within the next 15 to 20 days. Before leaving, he buys a cow and gives it to Mother Parvatama so that she will always have a supply of milk for the Balayogi. Later, Tapaswiji Maharaj, a respected saint, attends a meeting in his honor in Kakinada. He highly praises the spiritual status of the Balayogi of Adivara Pupeta. His deep admiration of the Balayogi affects the people of the area and increases their respect for the Boy Yogi. They begin to travel in even large numbers to Adivara Pupetta for his darshan. Later, during the second year of tapas, the Bala Yogi suddenly suffers with a burning feeling all over his body. This intense pain becomes unbearable. Although he clenches his teeth to control the feeling, tears begin to stream from his eyes. While he is squirming and weeping with pain, he passes into samadhi. Though he is now unconscious of the terrible pain, his body continues to burn and is hot to touch, as if he is being scorched from within. This is accompanied by a foul smell. At this time, Tapaswiji Maharaj is living at the ashram in Nadi Hills, near the city of Bangalore. He sees the suffering of the Bala Yogi when he is sitting in dhyana. He immediately leaves by train for Kakinada, nearly a 2-day trip away, bringing with him a bottle of medicated oil that he has prepared. From Kakinada, he travels the 1 hour to Adivara Pupetta and goes directly to the Dhyana Mandir and applies the oil by hand all over the Bala Yogi's body. The application of this oil immediately relieves the burning feeling, and the foul smell disappears. Tapaswiji later explains that someone out of hatred or jealousy had practiced black magic on the Bala Yogi, and the burning feeling and foul smell resulted. Because the Bala Yogi sits in almost continuous samadhi, with its palms joined and fingers interlocked, his hands have become stiff and rigid, and eventually locked together. The oil that Tapaswiji Maharaj brings helps to make the palms of his hands more flexible, so he can separate the palms. Yet he still has no control over his limbs. Tapaswiji Maharaj again visits the Bala Yogi in October of the 3rd year of his tapas. He offers to give him the Surya Upasana mantra, prayer to the sun, and the Bala Yogi agrees. Tapaswiji Maharaj initiates him into the Surya Upasana mantra. During this time, the Bala Yogi's divine guru appears on one of his regular visits. The Bala Yogi tells him all that has happened. The guru approves of his doing japa, repeating, of the Surya mantra, but tells him that the mantra that Tapaswiji gave him is incomplete. His guru then initiates him into the complete correct mantra. When the Bala Yogi next meets Tapaswiji Maharaj, he informs him about his error in giving the Surya mantra, and Tapaswiji repeatedly agrees. The Bala Yogi then starts doing japa of the Surya mantra for 2 hours each day, and spends the rest of the time in his normal tapas. The Dhyana Mandir is a small single room measuring 12 feet by 12 feet, with open spaces in the roof. It has no windows or ventilation, and the door is kept locked to prevent disturbances. Therefore, it becomes very hot and stuffy inside, and is almost unbearable in the summer months. One day, Sri Narsima Murti discusses this problem with Tapaswiji and asks him what should be done about it. Tapaswiji suggests that the Gopura pointed roof should be built on top of the Dhyana Mandir. Following his instructions, the Gopura is constructed by Sri Reho, an engineer and disciple of Tapaswiji Maharaj. When the pointed roof is complete, it lessens the effects of the heat in the Dhyana Mandir. The divine guru visits his disciple every 3 or 4 months, or sooner if necessary. There are 3 reasons for these visits. 1. To give new instructions for continuing tapas. 2. To remove any obstacles or difficulties. And 3. To give fresh courage and enthusiasm to the young disciple whenever he feels discouraged or wants to give up. As mentioned earlier, he has lost control of his limbs after 1 year of tapas. Therefore, he finds it impossible to eat, take a bath, or care for his body. The 17-year-old Balayogi bears this crippling handicap for 3 long years. Sometime in June, he gets sick and tired and goes on strike, gives up his spiritual practices, stops his samadhi, and just sits around in a depressed mood. Sure enough, the divine guru promptly arrives on the scene and knows what is annoying the boy yogi. Yet he teases his rebellious disciple and asks, "What is troubling you now?" The Balayogi takes the chance to release off his frustration and tells his guru about the difficulties that he is facing because of his crippled limbs. As usual, the guru smiles kindly and then runs his hands over the arms and legs of his disciple. As soon as he does this, the limbs, which have been crippled for 3 years, are whole again and perfectly under control. The Balayogi is relieved to find that he can take care of his needs without anyone's help. Yet the fingers of his hands have become permanently bent because the flesh has grown together in the joints of his fingers over the years. The Balayogi returns to his 4th year of tapas with new energy. At the beginning of October, he goes into deep nirvikalpa samadhi with no consciousness or self. This samadhi is continuous, and he doesn't take his short break at midnight for a bath or food. He remains in the continuous deep samadhi for a month. On the night of October 28th, he is awakened from his samadhi by a tap on his leg. As he slowly returns to consciousness, he becomes aware of an intensely bright radiance lightening up the entire Dhyana Mandir. He gradually sees that this radiance is shining from the divine presence. It is so strong that he finds it difficult to look in that direction. As his eyes get used to the light, he sees a snow-white and divinely beautiful figure standing before him, whom he believes to be Shankara Bhagavan, Shiva, great god of peace. The Balayogi's whole body is thrilled at this wonderful vision, and his heart overflows with joy. He is so delighted, but confused about the identity of this divine person, because he has never seen, known, or heard of anyone like him before. He feels in his heart that the person standing before him is truly the great god, Shankara. In order to see if his feelings are correct, he asks, "Who are you?" Lord Shiva gives an amused smile and says, "They call me Shankara Mahadev, Shiva, supreme god of peace." Lord Shiva tells the Balayogi, "I appreciate your determination in carrying out your tapas. Do you need anything or want to ask for a blessing?" He replies, "I want nothing, and I don't wish to ask for a blessing." Shankara Bhagavan then sits on the wooden platform opposite the Balayogi and talks with him for some time. He tells him, "Your guru will come and direct you on what to do next." Then Shankara Bhagavan disappears. The Bala Yogi spends the rest of the night quietly in ecstatic contemplation of the divine vision that has been given to him. This sakshatkara, God realization, of his Ishtadeva, chosen from of God, Shankara Mahadev, makes the Bala Yogi a Siddha Purusha, realized soul. During the first few years, the divine guru had given no formal instructions to his disciple to sit facing in any direction. However, because of his unspoken command, the Bala Yogi sat facing east for the first 4 years of his tapas, from August 7th to October 28th. The Bala Yogi is almost 19 years old when he attains Siddhi, perfection, and Dik Siddhi, perfection of direction, of the eastern direction, on October 28th. This marks the completion of the first stage of his tapas, facing east for 4 years. Chapter 4. Tapas of the Northern Direction. At midnight, on October 29th, the divine guru again appears before the Bala Yogi. He tells his guru all that happened on the previous night with him. I had darshan of Shankara Bhagavan and also talked with him for some time. The guru appears well pleased with all that he hears. He tells the Bala Yogi, since you have acquired Dik Siddhi of the eastern direction, you must now continue tapas facing north. He instructs him. Discontinue japa, repeating, of the Pacha Akshari mantra. I will give you a new mantra appropriate for the tapas of the northern direction. From this day on, you are also to practice mauna, silence. Having initiated him into tapas of the northern direction, the guru disappears. Practicing mauna, silence, means that the Bala Yogi will not talk at all and will communicate with the guru mostly through the mind, by thoughts or looks. He will also communicate with the guru and others by gestures, which is moving the body, hands, fingers, face, and eyes in different directions. The Bala Yogi gained Siddhi of the Pancha Akshari mantra, so he is immune to the venom of snakes and other poisonous creatures. He experienced dramatic proof of this immunity shortly after he begins tapas of the northern direction. One night, he is walking to the well for his midnight bath. A nag, cobra, bites him on the leg and sticks to it. Fearlessly, he pulls the snake off and throws it to one side. This is a vicious bite, but the venom injected doesn't harm him. The Bala Yogi, with the Guru's approval, has been doing japa of the Surya mantra, prayer to the sun, for 2 hours daily for almost 2 years. One night, during the 5th year of tapas, the divine Guru appears on one of his regular visits. He tells him, you will soon be rewarded for your japa of the Surya mantra. 10 days from now, Surya Dev, divine being of the sun, will appear to you. In exactly 10 days, the Bala Yogi has sakshatkara, God realization, of Surya Dev and gains siddhi, perfection, of the Surya mantra, prayer to the sun. As is his habit, the divine Guru appears the very next night. The Bala Yogi communicates to him through thoughts and gestures about the happenings of the previous night. Suddenly, the Bala Yogi communicates that he would like the Guru to take him to the Surya Mandal, the sphere of the sun, because he wants to see what it is like. The guru readily agrees to take him there. Before starting, he instructs the Balayogi to close his eyes and not to open them until the guru tells him to do so. He closes his eyes. In no time at all, it seems, the guru tells him to open his eyes again. When the Balayogi opens his eyes, he is looking down on the landscape very similar to Earth. There are mountains covered with forests and river valleys, and some of the mountain peaks are covered with snow. After a short visit, he communicates to the guru that he wants to be taken back. He does not close his eyes for the return trip. The divine guru makes him sit on the palm of his hand. They shoot back towards Earth with almost the speed of a thought. On the way back, they have to pass through the blazing sphere of the sun. The heat is extremely intense. The Balayogi could have been burnt into a cinder, but the divine guru protects him. Even with this protection, he is exposed ever so slightly to the fiery orb of the sun. He suffers intensely from the extreme heat. The divine guru gives his disciple some relief. He gives him a dip in every river that they cross in the astrosphere, world of consciousness, and also on Earth. The Balayogi has never traveled so far from home and can't recognize most of the rivers. The only river that he recognizes is the Godavari. When they dip in it near the town of Rajamundri, the tapas facing north continues at a fast pace. During these 2 years, the Balayogi enjoys good health and experiences great ananda, bliss, during samadhi. On July 15th, he goes into deep nirvikalpa samadhi for 15 days without a break. On the night of August 1st, the 20-year-old Balayogi once again has sakshatkara, God realization, of Shankara Bhagavan, Shiva, great God of peace. As before, he communicates to the Balayogi for some time. As before, Shankara asks, "Balayogi, do you want anything?" The Balayogi gestures, "I do not want anything." Shankara Bhagavan then disappears. This marks the completion of the second phase of tapas, facing north, for 2 years. Chapter 5. Tapas of the Western Direction. His guru does not appear immediately to give new direction for continuing tapas. Knowing the difficulties that lie ahead, the guru warns his disciple to rest for the next few days before beginning the next phase of tapas. So the Balayogi has a break and a rest from August 1st to August 6th. At midnight of August 7th, the divine guru appears again. He informs his disciple that he will now be required to do tapas facing west. He warns the Balayogi that he will have to face many difficulties and obstacles, severe at times, but he should not become discouraged and must never give up. He assures his disciple that whenever he needs help, the guru will come to his assistance. Finally, he gives him the correct mantra prayer for tapas of the Western Direction. With a parting word of cheer, divine guru disappears. The Balayogi gets a sample of what lies in store for him on the very next day of tapas. Suddenly, for no reason, he develops a severe stomachache and again suffers with the burning sensation experienced earlier. This is very painful, but only the beginning of his bodily suffering, which he will have to endure almost all the time in the tapas of the Western Direction. In August, 8 days after the Balayogi starts tapas, the cow that provides milk for him suddenly dies. A new cow is brought and dies within the next 15 days. From then on, as soon as a cow is brought for the Balayogi, it dies, and any cow whose milk is used for him dies. This poses a big problem for him because milk is the only nourishment that he takes daily at midnight. Then, the Balayogi develops nausea for milk, immediately throwing up any milk that he tries to drink. Soon, he is carrying on his strict tapas without any food at all. Obviously, this can not continue because the Balayogi will not survive for long. This problem is finally solved by D. Shelayama, the wife of D. Ramakrishna Reddy, who has the idea to substitute Horlicks, a malted drink, daily in place of the milk. The Balayogi tries this and is able to drink a glass of Horlicks without any adverse effects, which greatly relieves all his devotees. From that day on, he survives on a daily glass of Horlicks during the tapas of the western direction. On the midnight of October 12th, the Balayogi opens the door of the Dhyana Mandir to go for his daily bath. Lying coiled up across the doorway is a huge nag, serpent of the cobra family, of a shimmering amber color. The moment that nag sees him, it rears up with a loud hiss, spreading its very large hood, and begins to sway to and fro, intently watching the yogi's movements. There is a rule of yogis when faced with an obstacle on their path. They may remove the obstacle or go around it, but may never turn back, especially if this indicates fear. The nag is blocking the Balayogi's path, so he calmly looks for a way to go around it, but there is no way. Finally, the only thing he can do is step on the coiled body of the serpent and walk across it. Of course, this is asking for trouble, and with an angry hiss, the nag bites him on his left thigh. The Balayogi doesn't stop, but goes on and takes his bath. When he returns, he finds the nag still coiled up across the doorway. Once again, he has no choice but to step across the nag in order to re-enter the Dhyana Mandir. The nag bites him a second time on the big toe of his right foot. He is not disturbed at all, closes the door, and prepares to continue his samadhi. The Balayogi is immune to the bites of most snakes, but this isn't an ordinary snake. This is the nag that is around Shankara Bhagavan's neck, and he isn't immune to this nag's bite. The poison from these two bites begin to take effect. Before he can sit in yogic posture, he falls unconscious on the wooden platform. Earlier, the Balayogi has set up certain rules for those looking after him. During tapas of the West, they can only enter the Dhyana Mandir on the third Saturday of each month. They are to come between 7 p.m. and midnight for cleaning and other purpose. At this time, they might also receive silent instructions from him. On all other days, a glass of Horlicks is to be slipped in through the window. Nobody is permitted to enter or disturb him in any other way. The third Saturday for their visit is still 4 days away, with the result that he lies unconscious all those days without anyone knowing about it. Finally, at 6 a.m. on the fourth day after the nag bite, the divine guru appears and arouses the Balayogi from his unconscious state. He sits up in his usual yogic posture, but feels extremely weak because of the ordeal that he has gone through. At 7 p.m., Mother Parvatama and those looking after the Balayogi enter the Dhyana Mandir They find the 4 glasses of Horlicks untouched inside the window. They ask him why he didn't drink the Horlicks. He communicates to them in sign language about all that has happened. They tell him that Tapaswiji Maharaj passed away on October 12th. This news saddens him because he has developed a great regard and affection for this respected saint. Balayogi knows that it is no coincidence that he was bitten by the nag on the very same day on which Tapaswiji Maharaj attained Mahasamadhi. Yogic soul leaves the body. The Balayogi continues to suffer from various bodily ailments during the entire tapas period. He doesn't notice this during samadhi because he is not conscious of the aches and pains of his body. When he comes out of the samadhi, he is acutely aware of his bodily pain, causing him distress and lack of peace. News of the passing away of friends or relatives and troubles they are suffering also disturbs his peace. The Balayogi concludes that staying in samadhi most of the time and cutting off contact with the outside world is the best way for peace. With this in mind, he communicates this decision to his mother and the committee members looking after him. He uses sign language to indicate that he is going through a difficult phase of tapas and needs to be completely undisturbed. If they find his body decomposing or smelling of death, they should perform the last rites prescribed for a yogi. Otherwise, he should be left strictly alone. Sending them away with these grim instructions, he shuts himself in dhyana mandir. Though he is suffering extreme bodily agony, he firmly continues his tapas. It is customary for yogis to carry a kamandalu, water pot, and a yogadanda, a forked armrest. The 21-year-old Balayogi carries both the kamandalu and the yogadanda to the well for his midnight bath. One night, when he is halfway through his bath, a very old man asks him for some water to drink. Stopping his bath, the Balayogi pours out water for him from his kamandalu. When the old man finishes drinking, he asks the Balayogi his name. The Balayogi motions his hand that he does not know. The old man then asks him to lead him home. The Balayogi conveys with sign language that this is not possible. Suddenly, the old man flares up. "Why do you keep making these signs? Why don't you speak to me? Come, you must accompany me to the village." With these words, he grabs the Balayogi by the arm. With surprising strength, he starts dragging him towards the Balayogi's former house in the village. This places the Balayogi in a dilemma. Due to the intensity of tapas and his bodily sufferings, he barely has enough strength to handle his bath and other needs. He can hardly hope to resist this amazingly powerful old man. In desperation, he seizes his yogadanda with all of his strength and strikes a blow on the old man's arm to make him release his grip. The yogadanda breaks in two on impact, and momentarily the Balayogi loses consciousness. When he recovers a minute or so later, the old man has disappeared. Thinking no more about this, he finishes his bath and returns to the dhyana mandir. To his surprise, he finds the other half of the yogadanda lying on his tiger skin. The Balayogi then realizes that the old man has come to test his firmness and his strength of purpose. Some days later, the Balayogi is again taking his daily bath. An extremely beautiful young girl approaches him at the well and asks for some water to drink. The Balayogi remains absorbed in spiritual thoughts all the time, so he doesn't think about why a young girl is alone at midnight at the village well. He just draws some water from the well, fills his kamandalu, and pours it for the girl to drink. Meanwhile, the girl tries various ways to start a conversation with the Balayogi, but he doesn't respond. Then she cleverly tries to make him break his mona and speak to her, but this doesn't work either. Appearing disappointed, she leaves the place. After finishing his bath, the Balayogi walks back to the Dhyana Mandir. Nearing the northern door of the Dhyana Mandir, he is surprised to find the same girl standing on the path, blocking his way. He tries to get around her, but every way he turns to go, she runs and playfully blocks his way. Calmly, he goes around and enters the property from the southern entrance. As he approaches the Dhyana Mandir, he hears a rhythmic, pleasing tinkling of bells, worn for dancing, coming from inside. Somewhat puzzled, he opens the door of the Dhyana Mandir. Surprised and shocked, he discovers the same girl inside, wearing bells around her waist and ankles, and standing in a dance pose. A strange light radiates from her, filling the inside of the Dhyana Mandir with a glow. Bathed in that light and standing in a graceful position, the girl looks divinely beautiful. Suddenly, responding to the beat of some invisible choir, the girl begins an enchanting but unearthly dance. By now, the Balayogi realizes that this is another test that he is undergoing. So ignoring the girl, he quickly goes and sits in yogic posture, closes his eyes, withdraws his mind from the outside, and is soon in deep samadhi. The next night, on May 25th, the Divine Guru appears, and the Balayogi gestures to him all that has happened since his last visit. He uses his hands, fingers, face, and eyes to carefully describe the strange visits of the old man and the dancing girl. The Guru just smiles, and when he hears all of this, he tells the Balayogi, "You should absorb your mind in continuous samadhi, and only come out of samadhi when you are awakened by Shankara Bhagavan, who will appear before you in a month's time." After the Divine Guru leaves, the Balayogi signals to his mother to bring the other members of the committee. When they arrive, he communicates with signs by showing one finger to indicate 1 month and closing both eyes to show the samadhi posture. With serious open eyes, he points a finger towards himself and waves his palms a few times to forbid them to disturb him. They understand that he will be in continuous samadhi for the next month, and he is not to be disturbed for any reason. Then he sends them away and locks himself in the Dhyana Mandir. By now, the Balayogi has completed over 9 months of the tapas facing west. During this time, his body has been tortured by illness and suffering of all kinds and is near collapse. The skin has cracked open at a number of places, exposing deep openings and wounds, which bleed regularly. The body has reached its limits, and it is surprising that it keeps going at all. Yet the troubles of the body do not disturb the calmness of the Balayogi's mind. Long ago, he realized, through his direct experience, that he is not the body, but is the soul within, which is not affected by the sufferings of the body. He is secure with this understanding and continues his tapas, not caring whether the body survives or dies. The worst is now over and the goal is in sight. He is not worried and sits calmly in his yogic posture and passes into deep nirvikalpa samadhi, no consciousness or self, as directed by his guru. The nirvikalpa samadhi continues without a break for 1 month. Then, at midnight, on June 25th, the Balayogi feels a light tap, which slowly brings him back to consciousness. As he becomes aware of his surroundings, all he can see is a dazzling light. He can't figure out whether the light is from inside him or from outside, because he is in deep, indescribable peace and spiritual joy. Then he feels another tap, and opening his eyes, he sees standing before him in Nataraj Swarup, pose of the Lord of Dance, Girija, Gauri, and Natesha Shankara Bhagawan, dressed in clothing of jungle folk. This sakshatkara, realization of the Gauri and Shankara, causes divine happiness in the Balayogi. He is filled with joy and wonder, and just keeps gazing at them. Shankara says, with an approving smile, "I have been trying to wake you up, but you wouldn't get up." The Balayogi is somewhat surprised and gestures, "Is that so? I knew and felt nothing until just now, when you tapped me." The Natesha and Girija sit opposite the Balayogi on his wooden platform. They talk to him for a while. Shankara Bhagavan tells the Balayogi, "You should continue your tapas until you complete the full period of 12 years. I will tell you what I want you to do after that time." Then Natesha and Girija disappear. The 21-year-old Balayogi obtains sakshatkara, realization of the Gauri and Shankara, and Siddhi, perfection of the Western direction, on June 25th in less than a year. Chapter 6. Tapas of the Southern Direction. The next night, on June 26th, the Divine Guru appears again and tells him to sit facing south and to begin tapas of the southern direction. He gives him the correct mantra for the southern direction and vanishes. The Balayogi has just completed a month-long samadhi, which has completely cured all the bodily pain and sufferings. He is now at peace, both in body and mind. He has to face no serious obstacles, and his tapas shall continue undisturbed. However, serpents of the Nag family have followed his path from the beginning of his tapas. One midnight, he comes upon a Nag sitting across his path, as he is going to the well for his bath. Unconcerned, he picks up the Nag and throws it aside. In this process, the Nag bites him on the hand, but the venom has no effect on the Balayogi. The tapas continues for almost a year. In May, the 22-year-old Balayogi again has sakshatkara of Shankara Bhagavan and attains Siddhi of the southern direction. He has completed tapas of the southern direction in less than a year. The Balayogi attains Dik Siddhi, perfection of direction, of all 4 directions: east, west, north, and south. According to the Yogi Shastras, scriptures about the practice of yoga, it requires at least 4 years to attain Siddhi of any direction, which means that it would take a minimum of 16 years of tapas to attain Dik Siddhi of all 4 directions. As compared to this, the Balayogi attains Dik Siddhi of all the 4 directions in a little less than 8 years. This indicates his spiritual superiority and his determination and willpower in following the tapo marg, tapas path, according to the directions of his divine guru. On the day following the Balayogi's attainment of Siddhi of all 4 directions, there is a celebration marked by the ceremonial breaking of 1008 coconuts in each direction. The ceremony begins at 7 a.m. and is completed by midnight. When it is over, the Balayogi breaks his mauna, silence, by chanting the sacred sound of Om. The next day, at midnight, the divine guru appears. Since the Balayogi has been observing silence for almost 4 years, he has only communicated with his guru in sign language and through his mind. Now that he has ended his silence, he can talk with his guru more freely and easily. Up to now, the Balayogi has been completely absorbed in his tapas and has never wondered about the true identity of his guru, or even thought of questioning him. From the first day, when the divine guru appeared, the Balayogi had thought of him to be a Sadguru of the Jangam Devar religious group. He continued to believe this throughout these first 8 years of tapas, until he attains Siddhi of all the 4 directions. Now a doubt arises in his mind about the real identity of his guru, and he questions him about it. The Balayogi says, "Who are you? What is your true identity?" The divine guru says, "Don't you know who I am?" The Balayogi answers, "No, I don't know. I am even more confused by your behavior and your appearance. You suddenly materialize before me as if out of thin air, and just as suddenly you disappear again. In your features and other details, you look exactly like Shankara Bhagavan, Shiva. The only difference that I can see between you and Shankara Bhagavan are that Shankara Bhagavan has a snow-white complexion, but you are dark-skinned, and there is a bright light coming from Shankara Bhagavan, but no such light is coming from you. I find this all very puzzling, and so a doubt has arisen in my mind about your true identity." The divine guru has an amused smile. "After all that I have done for you, you still have a doubt? All right, I will clear your doubt after you complete the full 12 years of Yuga Tapas. Since there are still 4 years left for the completion of the Yuga Tapas, the divine guru directs the Balayogi, do tapas for this remaining period facing east. From now on, you can start initiating seekers into dhyana meditation. You do not have to continue the present practice of remaining in samadhi for all the 24 hours. Just 12 hours of samadhi will be sufficient." The guru directs the Balayogi to start following this daily schedule. Number 1, 4 a.m. to 4 p.m., dhyana, meditation, mostly in samadhi. Number 2, 4 p.m. to 12 midnight, darshan, blessings, to devotees, kirtan, singing names of God, at the dhyana mandir. Number 3, 12 midnight to 1 a.m., ablutions, spiritual washing, and daily bath. Number 4, 1 a.m. to 3 a.m., rest. So far, the Balayogi has been restricted to a certain quantity of milk once every day, after his midnight bath. He now starts eating a milk and fruit diet twice a day, once at 3 a.m. before sitting for dhyana, and a second time at 4 p.m. when he gets up from dhyana. The snakes continue to pay attention to the Balayogi. One night, a snake enters the dhyana mandir, probably through the water outlet, while the Balayogi is in deep samadhi and bites him on the hand, tearing away a bit of flesh. The Balayogi only becomes aware of this when he gets up from samadhi and finds that his hand is bleeding a lot. However, he suffers no ill effects from this bite. From the first days of tapas, people used to come to Adivara Pupweta in large numbers for the darshan of the Balayogi. Now that the Balayogi is giving public darshan, the stream of people has become a flood. An ever-increasing number of people are crowding the Dhyana Mandir for the daily darshan and kirtan. The Balayogi has always gotten a special satisfaction from feeding people. Therefore, at his direction, mass feedings of devotees and the poor are organized regularly. These mass feedings take place on the Balayogi's birthday, January 24th, Mahashivaratri, Great Night of Shiva, in February or March, the beginning of his tapas, August 7th, and many other occasions. Mass feedings, like darshan and kirtan, have become regular activities. These activities have surrounded the Balayogi from the earliest days of tapas. Tapas and spiritual ministry, service, go on side by side for the next 3.5 years, while the Balayogi is completing the full 12 years of his Yuga Tapas. Chapter 7. Siddhi of Yuga Tapas. In January, the Balayogi starts losing his appetite for even the strict diet of milk and fruit. First, he stops eating fruit and just drinks pure milk. Gradually, he drinks less and less milk and soon only has a glass of milk, now and then, often after many days. On most days, he just drinks water. Then he goes to the well for his daily midnight bath, and this seems to be sufficient. At the same time, the length of samadhi begins to increase again. At the beginning of June, the 26-year-old Balayogi becomes absorbed in continuous nirvikalpa samadhi, which lasts unbroken through June and July. At midnight on August 1st, the Divine Guru arrives and arouses the Balayogi from his deep samadhi. Then he sees that the Balayogi returns to normal consciousness. The Divine Guru smiles and says, "You have a doubt about my true identity, don't you? All right, now watch closely." As the Guru says these words, a dazzling light like lightning flashes from his body. The brown-skinned Jangam Devar disappears, and there stands the dazzling blue form of his Ishta Deva, chosen form of God, Shankara Bhagavan. The Balayogi discovers that his divine guru is actually Shankara Bhagavan himself, who used to come and guide him in the false appearance of the Jangam Devar. Shankara Bhagavan used to appear and guide him in the form of a Jangam Devar. Shankara Bhagavan and Mother Parvati, who has accompanied him, sit on the dhyana platform and talk affectionately with the Balayogi. They look upon him as both their disciple and their child. Shankara Bhagavan tells the Balayogi, "Your period of tapas is over, and you are free to go wherever you like and do whatever you wish." The Balayogi replies, "I do not wish to go anywhere. I will do whatever you want me to do." Shankara says, "I am very pleased with your answer. I compliment you for your firmness in tapas. From now on, your mission, special duty, will be to awaken the spirituality in people. You are to help seekers on the spiritual path. You will help them to break free from the hold of samsara, cycle of birth and death. You are to travel around and give darshan, blessings to people. Such blessings will help to draw them to the spiritual path and away from materialism. You shall initiate seekers into the secret spiritual path of dhyana yoga and guide them so that they can become free in their lifetime. You shall comfort those who are sad and heal those who suffer from pain in the body or mind by giving the sufferers sacred vibhuti, holy ash, which will be blessed by you for each person's need. Shankara Bhagavan tells the Balayogi, from now on, you shall use the name Sivabalayogi. Bala is another name for Mother Parvati. Yogeshwara means the Lord of Yogis. So the name means the Lord of Yogis devoted to Shiva and Parvati. Shankara Bhagavan tells his disciple, I will make you sit for tapas from time to time, as needed in future. Shankara and Parvati affectionately say, we give you our blessings. Goodbye. They disappear. Later, the Balayogi, on his own, changes his name to Sivabalayogi Maharaj because he feels that the use of Yogeshwara in his name might be misunderstood by many to suggest that he was being equated with Ishwara, the Supreme Lord, God. Chapter 8. Completion of Tapas, August 7th. As the day for the completion of Yuga Tapas draws near, thousands of people begin streaming into Adivara Pupeta for the darshan of the yogi. By the morning of August 7th, a tremendous crowd, numbering well over 300,000, is assembled around the Dhyana Mandir, waiting in joyous expectation for the yogi to come outside. At 8 a.m., Sri 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 Sivabalayogi Maharaj, the Balayogi, marks the completion of the 12 years of Yuga Tapas by chanting the sacred sound of Om in a melodious voice. The doors of the Dhyana Mandir are thrown open. As he comes outside, a mighty roar grows up from the crowd. He is escorted to a high wooden platform specially built for this occasion. Sri Sivabalayogi Maharaj has to be helped up onto the platform because he is not used to walking and is weakened by the lack of nourishment during the 2-month-long samadhi. As the yogi comes into full view of the large crowd, thunderous cheering breaks out, and the countryside echoes with the joyful jai, jaikara, hoorays coming from over 300,000 voices. This adoration by his devotees nearly sends the yogi back into samadhi again, and he has to be held up in order to prevent him from falling. Standing there with his eyes closed, in the semi-conscious state of spiritual joy, Sri Sivabalayogi Maharaj silently showers his blessings on the people who have come for his darshan. The crowd pushes and shoves to get a closer view of the Mahatma, great soul. They see standing before them a 26-year-old yogi whose body, though abnormally thin and almost deformed by the strictness of his intense tapas, shines with an extraordinary brightness and visibly radiates peace and spiritual grace. People should meditate. They must know themselves. This will bring peace to the world.